am Amy Ray, president of the Folly Beach Civic Club. Taking the time to be face-to-face with our mayoral candidates is the absolute best way to stay engaged and informed about your local government. Tonight is an excellent example of this community engagement. So I want to thank you, our audience members, for being here tonight. Our goal is to provide education, clarification, and perhaps new conversations once this forum concludes. As advertised, our questions were collected in a locked box at City Hall and using a dedicated email address. If your specific question has not been answered tonight, we hope you'll take this opportunity to speak with the candidates at the conclusion of tonight's event. The Folly Beach Civic Club would like to thank the Tides Hotel, Folly Association of Business for their assistance in securing this space, the League of Women Voters for their guidance and support, and finally, the Folly Beach community. Without your participation, there is no unity in community. And finally, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't remind everyone of the Halloween Carnival. We need candy, we need cakes, and we need volunteers. So you can always go to our website and find out how to do all three of those things. Now I will turn it over to Carolyn Murray, anchor with Channel 2 WCBD, our moderator.
Thank you so much, Amy. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's good to see everyone. Some of you I met last night, and for those of you who were unable to attend last night, the Candidates Forum for City Council, it's good to see you tonight. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you. I am Carolyn Murray, your moderator for this forum, which is sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Charleston area, and the Folly Beach Civic Club. Now, we all know that a candidate forum is not a debate. This is a forum. This is an opportunity for the candidates to share their platforms and for you, voters and potential voters, to educate yourselves about their positions. The League of Women Voters and Folly Beach Civic Club are nonpartisan organizations, and they have not endorsed any candidate. This is a nonpartisan event. On November 4th, you, the voter, will choose a mayor to help lead the city of Folly Beach. And a mayor's term, we know, is 4 years. The order of mayoral candidates was selected randomly prior to tonight's forum. And here are the candidates in the order they were selected: Chris Bizzell, DJ Rich, Ann Peets, Elton Culpepper, Catherine Houghton. Let's review the forum for tonight. The candidates will have 60 seconds for an opening statement, beginning with Mr. Bizzell. The candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to questions in rotating order by seat location. The first question will be directed to Mr. Rich. The candidates may take an additional 30 seconds for rebuttals after all other candidates have responded. A rebuttal is an opposing argument or a contradiction to what a candidate has said. If you wish to make a rebuttal candidate, please signal us by raising your hand. A candidate is allowed one rebuttal per question. It will be at the moderator's discretion, considering the overall time available in our forum tonight, whether we have an opportunity to rebut. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to make a closing statement. The questions were collected from you, members of the Folly Beach community. No question will be asked by the moderator that is directed to only one candidate or of a personal nature. The recordings of this event, whether they be in person or on digital device, may not be used without the approval of the League and the Folly Beach Civic Club. The League and Club will only allow video and audio recordings of the event to be broadcast or shared in its entirety by the media reporting on the event. Now, to keep the flow of the forum tonight, we have an official timekeeper. Dr. Jerry Cabot is our official timekeeper. And she apparently brought her own fan club with her. Very good, Dr. Cabot. For each of our candidates, Dr. Cabot will hold up a sign reading 30 seconds remaining and then stop when the candidate must stop speaking. We ask that you hold all applause until the end. Candidates, please stand when you are speaking so that you are visible from the back of the room. So let's begin our forum. We begin with our opening statements in seat order. Mr. Bizzell, please, your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Chris Bizzell, and I'm running for mayor. I'm not a realtor. I don't own this business on Center Street. I'm not looking to serve an agenda. I'm here to serve the community. Folly Beach needs a mayor that can offer steady, unbiased, balanced leadership. My campaign is grounded in 3 simple values: balance, making sure residents, businesses, and visitors all thrive together; sustainability, prioritizing infrastructure so that we can preserve the livability of the island for today and for future generations; and community, defending the integrity of the CAP and keeping Folly a place where neighbors continue to know each other. I'm going to make one pledge to you tonight. As your mayor, I will show up every day, do the work, listen, and work together so we can get great things done. Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is DJ Rich, candidate for mayor as well. It's been an honor to serve you guys for 14 years on city council. During that 14 years, we've made tremendous strides in replacing 6-year-old infrastructure. We have increased public safety and livability. We've protected natural resources. We've kept renourishment at the top of the list, and you know we get a lot with renourishment and protecting our resources. We're actually the leaders in the state when it comes to marsh protection and resiliency, which is going to be a big topic coming up in the future. With your support, I think I'm the experienced person. I've got the leadership skills, and I'd love to continue to represent you as your mayor and continue the work that we've done on council. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Peets. Being a great mayor for Folly will take listening to both residents and business leaders, formulating plans and programs to meet these needs, and leading a dedicated city council and city team to implement these plans really well. I bring the proven skills and experience. I have 30 years of general management experience, successfully driving sales growth for 22 business lines, the last 12 as vice president. I've managed $120 million budgets and teams of 17. Now I own a medical business in Charleston. I'm a problem solver, team player, strong at compromise, and results driven. Owning a home here for 10 years and being active in Civic Club, Senior Club, and all the different activities on Folly and on the Board of Zoning Appeals, I clearly understand what faces Folly on a daily basis. Because I'm living my best life and saw that I could offer this unique set of skills, I'm excited now to step up to serve Folly as your mayor.
Friends, I'm Elton Culpepper. I know so many of you having lived here on Folly Beach for over 20 years. I was elected the youngest mayor in the United States at 20 years old, serving the population of over 6,000 for 12 years. I'm the only candidate who has operated a business of over 80 employees here on Folly Beach, the Folly Beach Piggly Wiggly. For the last 10 years, I have been a realtor. Unlike my opponents, I am not a mayor that governs with an all or nothing approach on the current issues. I'll be there to find solutions and not perpetuate the problems. I'm not interested in closing the door on short-term rentals, but listening to all stakeholders and all interested parties. People are feeling the consequences of that decision. I'm here to listen and make our city paradise know what it is. The $9 million East Arctic safety plan isn't safe. Picture a fire truck coming down a one-lane street with 2 cars on each side and the doors open and the fire truck's stuck and can't get to your house. I will ensure citizens a good quality of life, update our city parks, and protect your property rights.
Thank you, Elton. Well, I arrived on Folly 15 years ago, and it was a pleasure. I felt very welcome, so I dove right in. I got involved with community service, everything from the president of the Civic Club and the vice chair of the Park and Rec Association. Next happened, I got into council. I'm in my 2nd term, and I could not be happier to be able to work together as a team to solve problems and to create new opportunities. But last but not least, I was so happy to be able to transfer my skill set as a university dean and administrator because similar issues affect campuses that they do on Folly Beach. So 30 seconds. What are those issues? Pardon me reading this. Protecting natural resources, expanding park and recreation, confronting livability issues, maintaining a strong financial position, increasing safety and security efforts, managing stormwater destruction, enhancing city communication protocols, preparing for crisis situations, upholding transparent practices, encouraging community engagement, supporting staff development, fostering inclusive decision-making, and preserving our funky Folly spirit.
Thank you, candidates. And now we begin our questions. Each candidate, as a reminder, has 90 seconds to respond, but is not required that you use that full length of time. Our first question goes to Mr. Rich. If you need the question repeated, I am happy to do so. The question is, describe the experience, skills, and abilities that you possess that will enable you to be an effective mayor. Include how long you've lived on Folly and your involvement in community activities.
Oh, I need to talk quick. I was born and raised here in the 80s. My grandparents lived here separately because they were divorced, so they lived here separate times, which was great for me because I got to come out every day. I've lived here for the last 20 years. I've owned a local business with my grandmother and other family members who are in the audience tonight, and it's been great. Community service was instilled in my brain at an early age. We've always given back to Folly. My grandmother started way before I was born, and it continues today. I'm a 4-time president of the business, Folly Beach Exchange Club, 14-year council member, and the last 4 years I've spent as Mayor Pro Tem. During that time, we have done a great job of improving everybody's quality of life on Folly, the aging infrastructure. We've stocked more money away in the bank for rainy days than any council previous, and we're very proud of that work. The last 4 years as Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Goodwin has done a great job of kind of bringing me up and showing me the ropes with staff meetings, with budget meetings, things of that sort. There isn't a surprise and there isn't a learning curve with me. I've been through it all in the last 14 years and especially in the past 4. This community means a lot to me, and I would want to make sure that it progresses responsibly. Thank you.
Well, I moved to Folly 10 years ago. I bought my house here, and I've just fallen in love with Folly, and I just love it here. Been able to meet a lot of folks getting involved in the community. I am active with the Senior Club and with the Civic Club, and also with galvanizing the residents around the issue of the short-term rental. So I got to meet a lot of people and get right involved. I love this community, and I love how excited everybody is about things and how involved everybody is. And it's really why I love Folly, and I'm very dedicated to it. In terms of skills, I think I just covered a lot of it in my opening statement, but I have general management experience that I can basically bring to bear and come into this position pretty easily and transition in. I've led big teams of 17. I've managed budgets for 22 different business lines up to $120 million. But I think the most important skills that are needed here are compromise, listening, being able to negotiate, and basically bring things forward to results and action. A couple things that I see here at the city is that they've laid a really nice foundation in terms of different projects, which we'll talk about, and plans, but it doesn't always go over the finish line. It doesn't always get to the action and results. So my results orientation is the key thing that I want to bring that differentiates me from the other candidates. Thank you.
I've lived here on Folly Beach for over 20 years. We bought property down here since 1984, so we know what Folly Beach is like. When I was mayor of Walterboro, we revitalized the downtown Washington Street area, which is still there today. We also built a state-of-the-art sewer system that is actually still running today. Also, while I was there, we did some substandard housing. I was very instrumental in getting a lot of federal grants. And that's what's really important to Folly Beach, is to being able to reach out to your governments, being someone who can deal with the state government and your local officials, being the local representatives, as well as the federal officials. I was more than willing and also more than successful in doing that. We in Walterboro, we got some of the most grants that were available at the time. And I'll do the same thing right here at Folly Beach. At the Piggly Wiggly, I've operated for 28 years and co-operated for 25 years. And I've employed over 80 employees, and all those employees were directly responsible to me. And all of you know what the job we did at Piggly Wiggly. And really, the city is like running Piggly Wiggly to a degree. It is a service to the community. Sometimes we don't look at it that way, but it is a business the same way. $1 million businesses are $1 million businesses. The only difference is you don't have a choice when you go to City Hall now. You have to go there for certain things. And we're going to make that environment become what you expect when you go there.
Thanks. Well, I was born into a family, luckily, that had so many values instilled in me. They were about integrity, community service, education, providing access to knowledge and information. So that led me to a path of higher education administration. I went along that path. Eventually, I assumed my doctorate and in leadership, as well as been able to be at campuses on land or at sea in the United States and internationally. And that gave me exposure to be able to respond to, quite frankly, many situations and also working with everyone. So what I would also want to say is that it is very important that we understand that all of us, whether we become mayor or we're council members, we are one vote, one voice. And I believe it's my job to represent those that have voted me in. That is my job. It also is the job of building a team. So I'm just going to share with you some descriptive words that folks have said about me. Knowledgeable leader, independent thinker, consensus builder, qualified researcher, effective communicator, community advocate, fair decision maker, risk manager, and last but not least, team player. So it would be my privilege to represent you at the local, state, and federal levels for the love of Folly.
Yeah, we've been involved in Folly almost since day one. I remember the first weekend when we were here, we did a Toby the Turtle beach cleanup, which was a great community event. And we've got my Stacy and I, we have a commitment to giving back and using our talents to make a difference. As part of the Folly community, I've worked on the Civic Club website. Full disclosure, I went, saw they needed help with their newsletter, built them a website, built them a newsletter platform. I built the Mahjong website. I've done work with the History Museum website. You don't want me building your house, but I can build you some kind of technical solution. On council, I've delivered the parking app, which has delivered 25,000 ads for local businesses. I've worked with residents and city staff on issues of gravel, saving residents money while protecting the environment, and I've collaborated on grants that could bring the city over $7 million. But my experience isn't limited to just the past years on council. I've managed $1 million a year chemical company. I've developed database solutions for SCDOT and DNR and the Charleston Air Force Base. I know how to promote a tourist economy as well.
Thank you, candidates. And again, if you would like me to repeat a question, I'm happy to do so that we are able to get in as many questions as possible. I will say the question once, but I'm happy to repeat it again. The question is, the mayor is the face of Folly and has many roles both inside City Hall and outside City Hall. What do you consider to be the most important duties of the mayor of Folly Beach?
Who goes
We
first?
begin with Ms. Peets.
The most important function of a mayor is really to be there and be the leader for everyone on Folly and lead equally so that people have access to bring their ideas and their unmet needs to the mayor so that the mayor and the city leadership can work hard to figure out solutions and problem solve. I don't think it is about having a leadership that is tucked away. I don't believe it is about just representing the face of Folly. I believe it's that human interaction and we become a stronger Folly. At the same time, the mayor is the face of Folly, so you need to be comfortable in interviews with the media, going up to the state level, federal level, regional level, and really advocating for Folly and making sure we get our due or negotiating and compromising for what we need. So that's secondarily important. I also believe the mayor has to be out in the community all the time, taking advantage of all the wonderful things and programs that we put on, meeting people who are, aligned with the mayor's point of view and not aligned with the mayor's point of view, and figuring out ways that we can incorporate all of those comments and input into a stronger and stronger Folly. So that's really the key role of the mayor.
The role of the mayor in a city like Folly Beach comes down to your citizens and the constituents and what they're wanting to do, and then you have the employees trying to get those things done that you are trying to accomplish from their standpoint. And it's pretty not that difficult to make all those things work. What we've had a problem with, though, is in our community, in my opinion, is the openness from the city government side being the input from the citizen side. You go to the city council meetings now, you really can't hardly say anything. You go to a public hearing, you can't talk about anything. Who ever heard of a public hearing that the public could not talk? And then and then right after that, they'll end up going to an executive session. They'll come back out and they'll vote 7-0. And they say what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing back there. I know what it looks like to us, and it looks like that to a lot of us. And that's what I'm going to bring. I'm going to bring openness to this government, and then we're going to take the administration of the government and make it work for you. I've done that before. It's not that difficult. It's really not. $1 million plus budgets are not a big problem. And we have the expertise as far as the administration is concerned of how to get that done. And we're going to probably have some tweaking to do inside the government itself. But, that's going to all be worked together. I've done that many a times working with people. I work with all of you. Y'all know that. The ones of you who really don't want to vote for me still know that I would still be there advocating for you if you had a problem.
Thanks, Hilton. I think that any leader, but particularly the mayor, must be honorable, must be trustworthy, and respected. I think that's essential. In addition to that, that individual needs to work as a team, in good days and in bad days, and sometimes just neutral days. I think it's very important that it be clear that all of us, as that team of 7 people, were voted in by all of you with different ideas, and it's essential that that leader build consensus and work with everyone. But the best asset that I have found over the years that the city has is the staff. The staff is amazing as far as their training, their ability, their data gathering, their history. So I think that that's also an asset that we continue to develop. And last but not least, it is all about the citizens. It doesn't matter where I stand personally on an issue. I'm a citizen, I can. But what matters most to me is that where I stand for the citizens and their beliefs, their dreams, and their hopes for our future.
So the mayor is basically the CEO of the city. You have to work with city staff. I have a great relationship with city staff. You have to turn your agenda items into budget items, and then those budget items into action and results. You have to find solutions. One of the things that comes up a lot in the last few weeks is transparency. We need to continue to improve communication. The mayor needs to advocate to the residents and the business community, and the business community needs to see the city as a partner again. We need to work together to find solutions, because Folly works best when residents, businesses, and our tourist economy are all thriving. The final thing is the mayor's tone, how you handle your interactions with people that don't necessarily agree with you. I'm open, respectful, and I emphasize civility in all interactions. I want to hear from every voice, whether you agree with me or not, because together we can move Folly Beach forward. Thank you.
I think the one thing that stands out, and I think everybody's mentioned it, is leadership. And when you're talking about leadership, you're talking about you've got a council that you have to lead through legislation. You have a staff that you have to lead through administration. And you do all these things, and we all work together so that we fix the things that the constituents want and the things that make our city better. You also have to be a great representative. You have to go to Columbia, and you have to politic and rub elbows with people to make sure we still get the sand, we're getting grants, we're getting our fair share. For a long time, we weren't, and now we are, and we need to keep that going. Those are the biggest steps, and you have to listen to everybody, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for Folly Beach, and you have to lead everybody in working together. That's the key, because we're all in this together. We all want what's best for Folly. We have to work together to get the best possible outcome we can.
Thank you, candidates. The next question, we begin with Mr. Culpepper. Please describe 2 pros and 2 cons for the cap on short-term rentals, and tell us your position on the short-term rental cap and why.
Well, probably if I asked y'all to raise your hands one way or the other, you certainly know where I stand on that, so we'll come back to that in just a second. I don't think that's been something I've shied away from, in fact, I'm the one that brought it out as the elephant in the room. No one else wanted to even address it. It wasn't even going to be an issue in this race until I brought it forward. Everyone else was trying to hide it. Well, guess what? It's not hiding anymore. As far as what the 2 of the pros are concerned, one is that the city is finally enforcing the quality of life that should have been enforced to begin with. We ended up with this short-term rental cap because we were not enforcing the laws on the books, and we all know that. And the second thing that I think is a positive is that some people that voted for the cap now know that they're limited as what they can do with their property. And they're seeing the light that their property rights have been taken from them. And we all know, we can tell that by I am a realtor, and I'm proud to be a realtor, even though I'm not a tech person down here. I know real estate is one of the most important decisions you have in your life, and monetary things that you do with your life, and you want somebody who understands that part of your equation. And a lot of you have taken a beating on your property, and it's just now getting ready to start. You haven't seen anything yet. As far as the part about the cons of it, it's just hurting you, and you know it's hurting you.
Thank you.
As soon as I got on council, it was COVID, and then it was short-term rentals for the last 4 years. When I reflect back on that time, it was very clear to me that my hope was that we could have had a moratorium, we could have studied, we could have discussed a cap. That was not meant to be. Democracy stood. It went to the people. After that, my job was to help, shall I say, work on things such as beneficiaries, work on things that were left off the table, work on medical hardships. There's also folks that have certain situations that now I think we do need to address. But one important thing about that is that for about 9 months, we had a short-term rental committee, which was amazing. They identified certain things beyond just a number, because a number represents people. A number is your story. It's not just a number. So what are the pros? Enforcement got better. We eliminated those event houses, those mini situations that had 50 people, and so on and so forth. And we increased, actually, long-term renters. As of today, there were 95 prior to the cap. There's 151. Again, I'm not saying there aren't any cons, because it's clear that when there was 1,235 people voting and there was only a 77-78 swing, that's a lot. Those are a lot of people that came out to vote, as high as a presidential election. So I want to say that, yes, I supported the cap. Yes, I still do. I would never repeal it, but there are ways possibly that we could continue to research.
Thank you.
My mom was a realtor. I have no problem with realtors, but I do have a problem when you advocate for positions that could impact your business. The 2 pros and 2 cons, I think the cap's never about good and bad. It's about balance. It's about protecting the residents and the short-term rentals and keeping that in balance. It was never about good or bad. When neighborhoods turn into revolving short-term rentals, you lose the very character that makes Folly so special. We need to protect our community. We need to make sure we value that, because our community has value. When people come here, they say, hey, Folly's different, it's special. That's why people come back. That's why our tourists come year after year. That's why we moved here. That's why you moved here. The cap represents a compromise to me. It's 800 is a third of the housing units. It allows rentals to continue and supports the local economy. It preserves the livability of our neighborhoods, and if you had a license before, you keep it. We address the inheritance. If you bought a house before the vote, you can get a license. When you pass, your kids can keep the house in the family. We added medical hardships, and 4% owners can still offset costs by renting 72 days. The cap is simply how we maintain balance and keep Folly Beach from becoming just another cookie-cutter resort.
I would say the two pros of the cap were that it cut out investors from taking over our island and losing our sense of community. It also curtailed the problematic rentals that we had. As Catherine mentioned, we had with the parties and the overparking, overuse of septic tanks, things of that sort. The two cons, I would say that property rights were taken. I totally get that argument, and it caused a lot of dissent and divisiveness on the island over something that's kind of down the middle. I do think the cap is the best way to curtail the investors from taking over and keeping our sense of community. That being said, everything gets evaluated on almost an annual basis for, is it working? Do we need to tighten things, loosen things, fix loopholes, things of that sort. Every ordinance that we have gets evaluated every so often, and this will be no different. It's a living document that we just have to kind of constantly monitor, see where it's at, and fix whatever's not working about it. I will say that Eldon thinks that this is the top issue of the campaign, but this election is about so much more than that. It's not anybody was trying to hide anything from it, but this is for mayor of the island. This isn't a referendum vote. This isn't a vote for council or a single issue. This is about who's going to be your leader for the next 4 years. There are so many more questions than just the STR issue. While it's a popular issue, there are so many more questions and things that we need to get out and understand positions on. So please, I hope everybody is looking through to more than just STR, because while that is a major issue, there's a lot more to this race than just that.
Thank you.
So the cap was put in, as Catherine mentioned, from a vote of the whole island, and basically the highest voter turnout, more than most elections. So we have got to go with that democratic vote and basically move forward. It's almost 3 years later, and it's not to just say, well, it was in the history and in the past. There are certainly pros and cons, but I agree with Chris in terms of you've got to strike the balance. We were heading in a really tough direction. So two good things about the cap. The first one is that more neighbors, less strangers. I mean, other pros have been echoed, and I echo what they said. But basically, what we're finding actually in my neighborhood is people are moving from places like Isle of Palms because there are restrictions here, because they were just getting overrun with tourists, and they're finding that the first thing they said when they started unpacking is that cap going to stay in place, because we really want to live where there are some restrictions on that. The second thing is party house noise violations. Noise violations have really come down. I was looking at the data from the city, and it was 33% of the 350 violations last year. It's down to 13%, so it's made a great difference. In terms of cons, I think there are a couple that haven't been mentioned. One is really the extra expense to the city. Managing all of the short-term rentals and having to put in that extra paperwork, all those reminders, all those getting back and forth has really added almost $600,000 in terms of expenses and licensing and attorney fees. So that's, I need to stop, but that was it.
Thank you. Candidates, this question came in from a resident, and I am going to quote the person. The person says, it reads, "I am one of the few long-term renters on the island. Before the cap, Folly was down to 105 long-term licenses, or LTRs. Since the cap, it's up to 148. So the cap has resulted in more LTRs. I am concerned I will be displaced if the cap is eliminated. What impact do you think the cap will have on long-term renters and their property rights?" We begin with Ms. Houghton.
That's okay. That's right. That's all right. Well, as I just said, I wanted to get today's data. So pre-cap, I have 95. Today, 151. So I know it's only been 2 years, but it's going in that direction. That definitely is a question as I look at a few long-term renters in this audience that completely would stop me at the post office and just so heartfeltly say, please, please, let me still be able to stay on the island. Let us still persist. That is a voice that really wasn't heard a lot in this process. So I have hope when I look at a number that's increasing. It's going in the right direction. I also want to be able to say that any leader of the city needs to be able to be accessed, and those concerns need to be able to be voiced. They need to then go to the staff, and then we need to be able to bring it to council, whoever is your mayor, whoever is on council, because those are the voices of the stories of the people that love Folly Beach and want to live here. I think whatever category you are, 4%er, 6%er, pro-cap, anti-cap, all of that really is about how much we love Folly and how much we want to stay and persist here.
We all know somebody that's been affected by this issue. We had people right behind us that had to move when their house was converted to a short-term rental. So it's proven that Airbnb has cannibalized the long-term rental market. The good news is that the cap is working. We've gone from less than 100 to now around 150 long-term rental opportunities on the island. I helped the Planning Commission almost spent 6 months on this issue last year. I've advocated to have help for our municipal and our public safety workers to live in the community that they serve. We need to reinvigorate this conversation because it's a complicated conversation. Folly's not a cheap place to live. We need to look at creative solutions to get people back into the island because when we lose people that are long-term renters, we lose a little bit of the fabric of our community. As mayor, I'm going to keep looking for fair, practical ways to support the people who serve our community.
I think we're all happy to hear that the long-term rental registrations are up. That was one of the things that we were told before the cap that this was one of the outcomes that we were hoping for, and it seems to be working. I will say, throughout history, this island has traditionally been, the third day trippers, the third long-term renters, the third owners. It's really kept that formula, and everybody just works together. So we want to make sure that we do have the long-term renters because they make up the character of this community as well. So it's good that it's working. I think there's other things that we can do. Somebody has a good plan for, we need to look at some ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units like the city of Charleston has, things like rooms above your garage, things of that sort that are deed restricted that you can rent out long-term. That'll help increase the long-term rentals on the island and make it to where our employees and our people can afford to live here easier as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the positive things around the cap is really the addition of opportunities for long-term renters. They are a key piece of our community, I agree. One data point yesterday that I was here at the forum was mentioned that investment short-term rental numbers have not come down, and that's actually inaccurate. They have actually come down by 31. And so there's still about 125 over that 800 number that we keep needing to feed downwards. I think long-term rentals can really be part of the solution in terms of helping those people while they're waiting for their investment short-term rental licenses. I have no illusions that it would really replace the short-term rental income that comes in, but it's part of a plan. You could also rent a month or two at a time and put many long-term renters in. You don't have to do a full year lease. I think that could be a great solution. I'd also like to explore the Charleston Regional Development Alliance. They just allocated $50 million towards affordable housing, and perhaps there's a way to get a solution together around long-term renters holding on to that and basically working with our investment short-term rentals.
I certainly don't think anyone minds long-term renters being here at all. They certainly help our community, and if we can have more of them, that's a great thing. Sometimes you wonder how the data is actually collected. If you look at the short-term rental licenses that were before the cap actually got into place, we didn't have two different kinds of licenses at that time. And I'm not so sure that this number here is not being skewed off some things. We'd have to look at it and find that data to make sure. Some of that could be done by asking the people who are actually renting these places if they were here before or not, and we could look at some of that. As far as the rest of that part is concerned, you know, it's just not feasible or financially feasible for someone to take a house that's costing them an arm and a leg to keep the insurance and the taxes and the mortgages, and it just doesn't work as far as the numbers for most of these people, and everyone knows that. So I'm not so sure where this number is coming from, or whether that's some people that have some licenses here that decided to do some long-term renting that just aren't living here anymore. We'd have to look at that and see exactly where that data is coming from.
Thank you. Two candidates would like to rebut. We begin with Mr. Bizzell.
Just real quick, the city spent almost $100,000 on some software to track this, so the number we have is completely accurate. I think it's 925 was the last staff report I saw. So yeah, all these records, they're not just pulled out of thin air. These are actual data points that are pulled from collecting hundreds of records every month so that we can have an accurate and transparent count. This is published right on the website of the city.
Yeah, these are from Wes Graham 2 days ago to all the candidates, so those numbers were shared and they are the latest, and we just want to make sure they're working with the same set of data.
Thank you. And Mr. Culpepper.
And we all know that the city did not have accurate numbers when this became an issue. We know that. The city knows that, and all of us up here know that. So I don't even know why we're trying to look at some of these numbers that you're talking about. We do have accurate data today. If you look at the year that what Mr. Bizzell said happened, you will see that that happened after Mr. McFarland and the group came into play to make the city start looking at things. We did not have accurate records. That's why we had to hire the staff, and that's why they're charging them $1,300,000 for extra licenses to short-term rental people to get this information.
Thank you. Candidates, we move on to the next question. We begin with Mr. Bizzell. A state, county, and local accommodation tax is levied on the rental of any room in the city. The total Folly Beach accommodation tax revenue in fiscal year '23 was $3.8 million. In fiscal year '24, this decreased to $3.6 million, and in fiscal year '25, it increased to $4.1 million. After 2025 renewals, there were 925 investment short-term rental licenses. When the number of investment short-term rental licenses eventually drops to 800, what impact do you foresee this will have on the accommodations tax revenue?
So it's basically a supply and demand situation. So tax revenue has risen 24.8% from 24 to 25. In the same time, our number of ISGR licenses went back down to 925. So you see that tax isn't about the number of units on the island, it's about the nights rented. It's also about nightly rate. So if you look at supply and demand, as supply shrinks, demand stays the same, prices are gonna rise. So we're gonna end up basically at the same numbers we got right now. tax doesn't fluctuate too much, but it is on the rise, and I think those last few numbers are indicative of the performance we will see when we get down to 800. tax will remain strong, and the city will be in great shape. Our cash position right now as a city is $2.6 million. That's way up. Our revenues are up, even with fewer rentals, and that's balanced leadership.
I can simplify that for you a little bit. The 800 number was taken from the number of houses we had in 2020. That was COVID year. So in 2020, we can look back at that budget year and assume that, that's whereabouts you'll be, and which was a great year for us. So as far as that goes, when we get to 800, we won't have any problems as far as the taxes go. What people have to understand is that business is cyclical. We were really up for a lot of years. And when we go down, we're in a downswing right now. It has nothing to do with the short-term rental cap when we weren't at full occupancy this year. Businesses, like I said, it's a constant cycle, but we won't have to worry about not having any revenue. We will be just fine.
Yeah, I took a look at the numbers from the city, and the accommodations tax is staying pretty steady because it doesn't only come in from that source. And so just to echo what's been said here before, and basically the other thing we need to consider is that the revenue into the city does not only come from accommodations taxes, it also comes in from property taxes, from residents, and they make up a key piece of the island. So you always have to consider both sides of it, and also any different expenses to the city that any of these programs pull in, and look at that balance. But as I was looking at the A-tax, it wasn't changing a lot in the projections at all in the budget.
Well, we can tell these are business people around up here. If you take away 20% of what you have taken in, and it's not going to make a difference, wow. That's all I got to say is wow, really. We're going to sit here and believe it. I wish I had some Kool-Aid up here that I could just pour right in this cup and drink it, because if y'all want to drink that Kool-Aid, you go right ahead and drink it. If you want to be some of these businesses downtown, that when they start closing back again in the wintertime, like they did when I was down here in 2003 clearing my lot off, and we had half of them, or actually more than half of them, we did not have business down here. There was nothing down here going on in the wintertime. The restaurants were closed. I think there was one, the Seashell restaurant was open in Bowens Island, and that's all was open in the wintertime. The rest of them were closed. If you want to see some of that go back, if that's where you want to see your island go, take the cap wherever you want to take it. That's all I got to tell you about that. I know business. Anybody thinks, and we're only talking about the accommodations tax. We aren't talking about the $1.3 million that they just passed last year that they got from the short-term rental people, an extra tax. $1.3 million was added to that budget, and now you also want to take the extra parking money. They don't want to talk about that to you either. That's where they're taking this budget and making the budget work for us. We aren't paying anything in tax. You look at your tax bill when you get it, and thank God for the tourists. You thank God for the people that pay into parking.
What I would say about budgets is that, in my opinion, 6 years ago I got on council. I looked back, because looking at budgets, it's a cycle, and you need to look long range and project out. So at least 10 years. So right now, the snapshot of those 3 years, it is indeed a snapshot. Is it a wake-up call? Does it tell us things? Do we need to dig deeper? Absolutely. But in my opinion, the city not just needs to do budget cycles that project out 3, 5 years, but also I suggest that we get monthly budgets. That's also a piece that I think keeps us on task, keeps us accurate, keeps us sustained, and so that all of us, no matter what philosophy, what belief, what stories that people are telling us about their hardships, whether they believe us, whether the numbers are true. What I can tell you is I've read true numbers. I've made decisions on them. But what I can also tell you is you need to see more of it. You need to be able to access it. You need to ask questions about it. We need to be responsive to you because it's an issue of trust and accuracy.
Thank you. Mr. Bizzell would like to rebut. You have 30 seconds, please.
One thing that Elton missed was the fact that short-term rentals aren't the only accommodations here on the island. We're sitting in one right now. So it's been shown that short-term rentals cannibalize hotel occupancy. So as the number comes down, the occupancy rates in the hotels are going to go up. Things are going to equilibrate. So I think if you look at the A-tax numbers, we're going to be pretty good. We've got a solid foundation for moving forward with our budgets. And this A-tax number it's not going to fluctuate.
Thank you, candidates. We move to our next question, and we begin with Mr. Rich. The question is, there were multiple questions submitted regarding safety of pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles throughout the island, not just on Arctic Avenue. How do you propose the city address safety concerns?
I think if you look at where we were 10 years ago and look at where we are now, we've made leaps and bounds in this area because it was in such high demand then, and we put it as a top priority at all of our strategic planning meetings. It led right into our budget process. We have more pedestrian paths now than we've ever had before. I know it's not everybody's favorite subject, but I think the Arctic Avenue project is going to do leaps and bounds for pedestrian and bicyclist safety, and hopefully it works as a model for other streets. But at the bare minimum, we do have these pedestrian paths we've been building to try and get people safely off the street. We've added street lighting all on our back streets so that people can walk safely. We still have a ways to go, do not get me wrong. But if you look 10 years ago, it is night and day, the strides that we've made, and we have to continue on that. That's really what it's about, is you just have to keep going with the work that you're doing, keep those relationships with Dominion Energy so we can upgrade our lighting for free. Keep those relationships going with DOT so we don't have to go through every hoop that they want us to go through for a stop sign or a pedestrian path. Keep good relations so we can keep those things working, and it'll show.
So I also took a look at the safety action plan. That's actually an example of really great input from a lot of the people on Folly in terms of the safety issues. I did a survey a couple of years ago, and we were trying to figure out what residents' top needs were, and safety is really, it was 66% and usually in the top 3 from most people who answered the survey. So people have a lot of different concerns around safety, and it's top of mind. So the city was great. They basically took that input. They put together the safety action plan, and it was presented last year. There's a lot of great recommendations in here. They identified the top 10 intersections that were in trouble, big projects like looking at intersections and studying them, and multi-use boardwalks, small things like cleaning up the vegetation in certain unsignaled intersections, amber lights for turtles for the lights that the city puts out, speed cushions on certain streets. So when you look at that plan and you think about it was presented last year, this is the classic example of what I mean, not enough action and not enough results. It kind of stopped there, was presented, and everyone went, great, we have a safety action plan, and nothing happened. Basically, it was months later. Yes, some of the parts of this have to deal with the DOT, and you've got to go up to the state and really look at longer studies, but parts of it are like taking the vegetation off of corners. Let's get it done. Why can't we just do that instead of having to deal with a safety issue every day? I was lucky to learn at City Council this week that a lot of that has moved forward. I was really excited that they worked with the DOT to start moving it forward. But these are the kinds of plans we need action and results on in a fast manner.
Getting out and beating the streets, it's become obvious to me that people are really concerned about having some more pedestrian paths and bicycle ways on especially Ashley Avenue. Now, if you talk about trying to do something with that, it becomes really hard because you're talking about taking away a ton of parking to make that work. But I do think we're going to have to look at some areas of Ashley Avenue, especially around Burt's. I mean, if you go around Burt's, it's really a wonder that more people are not getting hit in the road there. I'm not talking about the intersection necessarily, but they're walking from 3rd Street and 2nd Street and literally just in the road there all the time. We got the golf cart situation. I'm not talking about LSVs that have lights and things, but I'm talking about the ones that don't have lights on them at all. At dusk, we see them all the time. And it's really a wonder these people aren't getting killed. Now that's enforcement there. That can be dealt with. That can be dealt with the golf cart people helping, and that can also be dealt with public safety taking action on that. Because, I mean, we see it all the time. My wife and I, we drive around here all the time, and it's always that time at dusk. And those people have to know when they rent these golf carts what their responsibilities are, or there are going to be consequences of that. So I do think we need to look at trying to get some more pedestrian ways into the city.
Well, let me tell you how happy I can say that I have the plan right here. April 2025, 5 short months ago. So what does that mean? That means that this plan is absolutely amazing. So whoever the leader is, execute this plan. I believe that if we do that, all of those trouble areas that have been documented, the corner of Burt's, places on Ashley, all the ones, and that was generated from all of you. That was your feedback that told us where you thought we needed to be better. So there's the plan. So what needs to happen next? Relationship building. What happens in this plan is not just on Folly. It's the South Carolina DOT. It's many entities. It's also Charleston County. That needs to be built on to be able to execute this. And then it's the funding. And that is a situation where, and I have to say, I am so proud that the city has been able to, without a grant writer, without extra funds, without extra people, generate revenue and funding to be able to execute portions of the plan, but also future planning.
Thank you, and I apologize, audience, for the feedback we are getting. We might need to switch microphones. Mr. Bizzle, I apologize. It is your turn, but let's just see how it works right now.
How's this? Good? We're good? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And we apologize.
No problem. Yeah, the Safety Action Plan really is a blueprint for how we're going to address safety issues across the island. But it does more than that. It is foundational. Having a Safety Action Plan enabled the city to go after $7 million in grant money to fund the Arctic Avenue plan so that it won't be on the backs of our taxpayers. So when you talk about safety, you're talking about the number 2 reason why moms pick a vacation destination. Safety affects our businesses, it affects our local economy. Pedestrian safety is important. We need to continue to expand the walking paths. If you've been on 2nd Street East near Burt's and going down near Chico Freya, it's a totally different world now that you can walk on a sidewalk. We need to continue to expand that across the island. We need to also look at our crosswalks and looking at different places where cars and people interact. This is safety is part of what we need to do to make the island safer, but also for our residents, for our tourists, and for our local economy. Thank you.
And Mr. Rich would like to rebut. You have 30 seconds. Thank
No
you.
problem. The one thing I'd like to say is we were just presented this plan 5 months ago. It is wonderful. And in those 5 months, we have already adopted it as a city. We've already started on some of the projects in there. We just put in 50 vegetative cutback requests with Charleston County the other day. Things are moving very rapidly. And what you have to understand is government works very slowly. There's so much red tape involved that it's unreal. Things don't happen overnight like the private sector. That was one of the hardest things for me to understand about government, was why can't we do this now? But when you get into it and you're working at it, you realize that it does take a little longer.
Thank you. Our next question begins with Ms. Pete. If you are elected, for which issues would you recuse yourself?
I think if I felt like there was a conflict of interest, I would immediately recuse myself, but I can't really think of anything. I don't own a short-term rental. It would have to depend on the situation of the meeting, and if anything felt like I was involved and I couldn't be making that decision because it was a conflict, I would right away recuse myself.
I would say the same. It just depends on what the item on the agenda is, but I don't see any conflicts that I would have.
I hate to be boring about this, but I'm an open book in the sense of I don't have certain conflicts that I know of, but I'll be honest, if I was conflicted or had conflicts, then I would access my resources. Do I call the Ethics Commission? Do I talk to the town manager? Do I talk to a previous mayor? So if I was conflicted and needed direction, I certainly would seek counsel, possibly even the attorney, Joe Wilson, for the city, to be able to do the right thing.
I've looked this up in Massey. It says if a council member or mayor has a potential financial interest or personal benefit in a matter before council, they must recuse. I follow this pretty closely. I did the free parking app for the city, worked closely with the city, also worked with some of the people at the parking contractor. When their contract came up, I recused myself. Not because I was making anything, but I wanted to be transparent, and that's how transparency works. we need to make sure that Folly has leadership that's transparent, accountable, and always puts the community first. That's why recusal is important. You shouldn't make any ordinance, policy, or anything that's going to affect your bottom line.
This is an easy one. When I was first elected, I was worried about owning a local business, so I sought out the recommendation you go to the Attorney General for an opinion. And he said the same thing Chris said, if it is personally lining your pocket, you must recuse yourself. Other than that, you're legally obligated as an elected official to vote on every issue. So with that being said, if you have any doubts if it's affecting your pocket, you can always seek the advice from the Attorney General. He's a great guy. If not, you're legally entitled to. There are some gray areas that you want to stay out of, but if it's not directly affecting your pocket, you are supposed to vote on it. I've also recused myself from gray area things. As my position at my business got stronger, I felt the street festivals were something I shouldn't be voting on anymore. Although it doesn't really dictate how much extra money goes into my pocket, I thought because I was stronger there, it was a little bit more of a gray area. So I've recused myself from all of those. But other than that, you are legally obligated to vote on every issue.
All right, thank you, candidates. Our next question, we begin with Mr. Culpepper. If funding were reduced or eliminated from federal programs such as FEMA or state programs such as those involving infrastructure, how would you realign future city budgets to replace the lost federal and state dollars?
Well, that's $1 million question. I mean, if we end up in a situation where the beach renourishment wasn't available to us anymore, that'd be devastating to the city. It's just that simple. We're very fortunate that we are in a situation where the federal government has agreed to take this project home for a number of years into the future. And so we don't have to worry about that portion right now. But there are probably some other areas that we're going to have to look at. If their funding is cut in certain areas that we are receiving those funds are, we have to try to balance the budget or either cut services. It's just that simple. Either you raise somebody's taxes, you raise their license fees on things, or either you cut personnel or you start cutting other things. You have to balance your budget. So if we can't find those funds out there, then we would be in a situation where locally we'd have to do something and make those drastic changes. There's no way we could afford the beach renourishment right now.
Well, what I can say in the last 6 years that I've been on council is we have been packing away the reserves. We are in very, very good standing for the rainy day. I also want to say that that's a legacy that was passed on to me. That was a blessing to be able to understand that we would not have to do some things that possibly other municipalities would have to. I will say, though, if there's one issue that keeps me up at night, there is no doubt about a named storm. That is one where I see that Folly will need to rally among ourselves as a community, but also we need to be proactive. We need to look at other revenue streams. We need to look at alternative funding. We need to absolutely go out for grants. And also, there are nonprofits that are ready, knowing that possibly FEMA could be reduced or not there. I think that's a message that's important because you can plan, but there has to be crisis management. There's the incident, there's the recovery, and then there's the aftermath. And that has a consistent process of working through the crisis and having the budget and accessing other resources.
So I actually thought about this question the other 2 weeks ago when we had to declare the state of emergency. I looked it up. It looks like we have around $3 million on hand right now if we had to pull everything together locally and address issues. I went to a luncheon about a month ago that was held by the Municipal Association where Nancy Mace addressed this very question. And she said, look, local government needs to have enough money to get themselves, she called it a bridge, until the federal funds come in. So I think we do a good job. We need to continue to build up resilience funds because you don't know how long it's going to take to get assistance. You look what's happening in like Western North Carolina, they're still waiting for money. So that we have to be able to stand on our own legs. That being said, we have a lot of collaboration agreements with the other municipalities in the Low Country. We can tap into that. We need to keep those relationships strong because you don't want your first phone call to these people to be and go, I need help. You need to have those relationships in place so that when things do happen, you know you can rely on each other.
Can you repeat the question for me?
Yes, certainly. The question is, if funding were reduced or eliminated from federal programs such as FEMA or state programs such as those involving infrastructure, how would you realign future city budgets to replace the lost federal and state dollars?
So we're talking about FEMA and grants, not beach renourishment for one. One of the things that I'm the most proud of is how much money we have been able to put into reserve accounts. And it's not for a rainy day or a snowstorm that's 2 days long. I'm one of the few that, I remember what Hurricane Hugo and the devastation was that it brought. We have enough money in the bank to run the city for a year with no income so we can get back on our feet. We have money to pool to get ourselves out. Because what people don't understand when something like that happens, you can't go to your neighbor because they're in the same boat you are. They need their resources. They need their scrapers. They need their chainsaws. They won't have them to lend us. We have to take care of ourselves in that situation. And we've done such a great job. I implore you guys, look at your budgets and the money that gets left over every year goes into those reserve accounts that have built up over the years. Look at the auditor's report. We get an auditor's report every year that comes in that we are a top-notch financial consistency. We have everything covered for a rainy day because we've worked so hard at it in the years past. And we need to continue doing that because the price tag only goes up for things. And you never know when that storm's going to come.
So yeah, I think the city's done a great job in terms of setting up that reserve for exact situations like that. But that is a short-term solution. As DJ mentioned, it's a 1 year get through and then try to move forward. I think what it really points out to me is that we're spending way too much time on short-term thinking. We're only dealing with infrastructure and what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen next year instead of looking out 10 years and building this into the plan. What if this worst-case scenario happened? What if the middle-case scenario happens? What if the optimistic scenario happens? No one's talking about vision, and I put in strategic planning processes and built vision for a number of different companies. We need to do that as a city to be ready on all fronts and to really spend time and get away from this short-term thinking so that we have a backup plan and we can sleep better at night.
All right. Our next question is, and we begin with Ms. Houghton. Do you believe the city is staffed at an appropriate level? If not, what program areas are overstaffed or understaffed?
Well, the good news again is we've had a compensation study and we've looked at staffing. And that was a goal and a value kind of coming out of a model and understanding city growth. Because the growth of the city is amazing in the sense of it's not just based in the number of units, the number of folks that living here, but it's actually quite a complex, large budget that is fluid. So for example, when I came on, there really wasn't resources for the community coordinator, and you can see those things that are happening. That's a perfect example as far as other issues that need to be addressed. I'll be honest with you, I've been asked about the short-term rentals as far as, is it appropriate staffing? At this point, it's a triage effect, and I would say it's appropriate. There's 3 people that focus on short-term rentals, and then it's augmented by public safety and permits. I think the thing that's amazing about the city is that they're collaborating, working together, and they take on each other's tasks when needed. So there's also cross-training. So what I can say to you is I don't see any people sitting around eating bonbons and not knowing what to do. I think that's the good news. I think that as we grow, I think we need to be more strategic and see where we may need other assistance.
I agree. Our city staff is phenomenal, and you can just look at the case in point the last couple of weeks with the state of emergency. We had king tides, and then we had water main breaks, and yet they were able to get things going pretty quickly. Our city staff wears a lot of hats. A lot of people are doing, like Catherine said, a lot of different jobs. And the thing that gets me is the fact that they collaborate. Everyone works together. We put together a grant proposal for the septic tank mapping situation. That took about 10 different people touching that report. Everybody's involved, everybody's pulling together. That's the thing about city leadership. You have to get everybody recognizing that the goal is to move Folly forward. And I think our city staff does a good job with that.
We have a great staff, and they do. These guys are right. They wear a lot of hats. What they didn't hit on is that, this is the first time in the history that we've had a fully staffed, full-time police department, dispatch, and firefighters. We found out the other night that we finally hired our last full-time firefighter position. We've got the 2 departments, so anything that goes wrong, we are fully staffed with full-time guys. The biggest thing about that is that when we have a hurricane or a storm or any issue, they don't get called to their other station. They come here. This is their home base now. We've worked really hard over the years to make sure that our compensation packages stay competitive in the market. We want to attract the best. We want to retain the best. We were getting a lot of policemen that would come through. We'd pay for their training, and then another agency would offer more money, and they'd take off. It was a constant revolving door. We got tired of that. So we upped our packages to stay competitive in the market. We put stipulations in where if they go to another department after training, that department owes us money for that training. So we make sure we cover ours and we keep ourselves protected. We've done a great job. The community coordinator position was a recent add-on, and it fit the bill immediately. I think right now we're great, but as I've seen over the years, you always think you're great till you're not, and then you figure out what the best person is, what the best position is, and you fill those needs as needed.
I agree, the staff is great. I had the pleasure of meeting with many of them and getting ready in terms of this campaign and talking to them, and they really are phenomenal. The city council, does the big designations of what to work on, and the amazing city staff takes it forward. In talking with them, I think they have great ideas. I have supervised big teams and many different levels of managers and employees, and I just think empowering them and really letting them run with their ideas is what's needed. I feel like some of them may be running too fast because they just have so much heaped on them. So I'd like to take a look at that if I come into the mayor's office in terms of if anybody's doubled up on and make a little adjustments. I didn't, have anything single to mention on that. But I think that's key, and I think that empowering the staff and making them feel like, I can really go the extra mile and 120%, and the mayor will have their back is really important to them, and I just look forward to working with them if I get the chance.
Could you repeat the question? 'Cause I'm not sure it's been answered.
Certainly. Do you believe this city is staffed at an appropriate level? If not, what program areas are overstaffed or understaffed?
Well, I couldn't tell you that until I get to be mayor. I'm not going to sit here tonight and tell you that I know what the city administrator needs in each one of his departments or her departments, whoever's run the administrative position. And also would have to listen to the citizens. If the citizens are telling me that there's a certain situation that, like I hear sometimes about public safety and the fact that their street is being, the people are driving too fast down the street all the time, and it's always a problem, and we're not addressing that. If that really becomes a problem, and I talked to the public safety director, and he says, look, we don't have the staff to do that, then we'll have to look at that problem and see how that's going to work. I don't see how you could expect me to sit here tonight and tell you whether it's properly staffed or not, or whether it's overly staffed or understaffed. But that will be done by the people who are working with the staff to come to me, and we'll all sit down and look at the departments, and we'll look at all of those things together as with the citizens and what the citizens have demanded by the election of what they want to see done.
Thank you. Okay, candidates. Our next question, we begin with Mr. Bizzell. What is your opinion regarding festivals? More, fewer, or about right?
I think festivals are great in and of itself. The one thing that I've heard from a lot of people is that entry fees are a little high. especially for non-residents. I mean, it's $15, so you bring 4 people, that's $60. It adds up quick. But I think the spirit of the festivals is what matters. It's the fact that it brings the community together. I mean, we just had Mermaids and Mateys. A lot of people that we talked to had just moved to the island recently. This is their first introduction to Folly's community. So it's great to get people out in the street. I would like to see a little bit more coordination with the city and the business community so we can kind of build out a vision. I think at some point the businesses and the city need to start looking at each other as partners again. We need to have open dialogue. I've been talked earlier about the idea that I want to have a quarterly roundtable with business leaders so that we can all address the issues they have, talk about the future, and how the city can support them. Because it's important to remember, Folly works best when businesses, citizens, and tourism economy works and is thriving.
I think I've had this question in every campaign I've ever been in. But where we're at now is perfectly fine as far as street festivals. There's a lot of things we can do for businesses other than festivals, to help them if they need boosts in certain areas. But as far as the street festivals go, I think every one of them has a good fit. I think they raise good money for good charities on the island. I was in the dunk tank for Alzheimer's at Mermaids and Mateys. I can tell you all about it. You don't want to do that, by the way. I don't recommend getting in dunk tanks. It's very hard on the feet. But where we're at now, it's fine. It's been a give and take process through the years. Originally, we needed more security after the Folly Girl incident. So they had to up the fees for the business association. That's why entry fees are where they are. When this is a problem, they've done that. Then we got barricades to fix for the Christmas parade to stop children from running out from under cars, to promote safety and hope nobody gets hurt. So you just constantly adapt and evolve as you go through. But where we're at right now is pretty good.
I think the festivals are great. They're a great way for everybody to get together and come down to the city, and that's residents and that's visitors and bringing everyone together. I think as we continue to look at how many people are coming onto the island, the number of cars are obviously growing as Charleston grows and the interest in Folly grows. And that's not to pull back on festivals, but I think there's a balance. I agree with Chris. I think like a regular dialogue on a regular basis to look at, are we having the right amount of festivals and how much is each festival drawing so that we aren't piling one on top of each other and really to the detriment of each festival. I think it would be a good look. They started really to bridge the gap during those winter months when really the businesses were struggling. I'm not quite sure we have those winter months anymore. I'm not saying to get rid of them, but I'm just thinking that we should probably look at pacing them to make sure each of the festivals are successful. The other issue that I've seen crop up is around the budget and the transparency around festivals. I want to make sure that any of the money that's moving around to these festivals and events that it comes from the city and taxpayers, that is tracked, and after the festival, we see where those proceeds went and basically where that taxpayer money went with very clear reporting. It's one thing that I think is missing from the city's reporting, and it needs to happen.
I think everybody up here just about is in agreement so far that the festival seems to be working fine. I think I'm a member of FAB and have been for 20 years, and I think we just listen to what the business people say they need. And they really haven't said they need more festivals at this time. It seems to be working pretty well. We have a traffic situation that starts around April. As soon as the sun gets to be 75 degrees, you're backed up 2 hours. So we kind of have to be careful about the time of year we have the festivals. And I think the city's done a pretty good job at that, because that festival actually used to be later, and we started backing it up earlier in the year. And we've got some that are later in the year now. So we kind of have to listen to the residents, because sometimes the residents can't get on and off the island at those things, those times of the year when we know that it's going to be 90 degrees and sunshine. They're coming. They're 50 people moving to Charleston area every day, and they're going to the beach somewhere.
Okay, so I agree. I think that when I arrived, there was some tweaking that needed to be done with the festivals. But I can tell you, I do not walk around thinking I'm not safe, I'm not secure. I find them to be well planned. I think that the other thing is when I visit FAB, honestly, it couldn't be better as far as the relationship and the work between the city and FAB. And I think it's important to note that we have more in common than we don't. as far as if someone did say there was a problem, we would fix it. And so along the years, I think we truly have. And everything from, I actually mentioned, please keep the alcohol out of the children's zone. Next time, it was taken care of. So anything that I can say personally or on council, Fab has responded to. The other thing that I would like to say is that the one thing that I got at this previous festival, because I was actually doing the library table, which is always fun, and they came up to me so many times, more than I was used to say, well, Catherine, I'm a 6%er. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, I don't always feel welcome. Or do I pay 50? Is it free? Is it? Those kinds of questions we need to answer. We need to be clear. Whatever you're called, you are a citizen, you pay taxes, you access the festivals and other resources. That was something that really struck me.
Thank you. Candidates, we ask with respect to time and hope that we will get in as many questions as possible. We have 2 more questions. The next question I ask that you answer with a simple yes or no. Can we play that game? All right. All right, let's good. All right, so we begin with Mr. Rich. The question is, would you support an application to the U.S. Postal Service to implement residential delivery in place of post? I haven't finished the question.
I know.
Residential delivery in place of post office boxes, yes or no?
Man, I know. I'm probably going to take a little more time than needed on this because it's probably the hardest question I've gotten all night. No.
Yes.
No.
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 Can I
Thank
rebut
you.
myself?
You would like to explain? Certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky. 10 years ago, nobody in this room would have said yes. You know, everybody loves going to the post office to meet their neighbors and see everybody. But as we've gotten more, we order more things online nowadays. We do a lot of online shopping. The post office is overwhelmed, and they don't always perform up to our standards. So it is a pain. It has gotten to be, but I still like to think that we want that character and community. You know, but I understand the frustration. I wish there was something we could do to ease the frustration. Hopefully, we can talk to them and work something out. Is the best thing I can tell you guys. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Peets?
Yeah.
For me, the reason I said yes is there's a lot of people that are running businesses out of their homes here now, and it's very difficult to deal with the post office and running out of your office all the time when you're working out of your house. The second reason is credit bureaus drop your credit score by 20, 30 points when you have a P.O. box. So everyone's suffering with that, whether we know it or not. And so, yes, do I think that the Postal Service will easily give us the routes? Probably not, but it's worth a shot.
Any other candidate wish to clarify? Thank you.
For me, it's actually logistics. I can't imagine putting a mailbox anywhere on the streets right now. I mean, that's where my head just went. As far as I'm worried about a person, I'm worried about a bike, I want to make sure there's no sidewalk. A mailbox, I'm sure I might hit it, so.
Thank you. Candidates, thank you again. And one final question, probably something that's still on the minds of a lot of people. Just last Friday, Folly Beach experienced an 8.6 king tide. Water overflowed onto the causeway. As mayor, what specific actions would you propose to lessen the impact of sea level rise, flooding, natural disasters, and erosion? We begin with Ms. Peets.
So the city is actually leading the state in terms of our environmental preparedness with the sea level rise adaptation plan, adopted in 2017. We are doing a great job in terms of drainage and marshfront management with these plans. They're still in the implementation stage, but we are thinking, not just thinking about it, but have the plans and are progressing on them. So I would say hats off to the city for really being and leading on the forefront of this issue. That being said, I think there's a lot of other areas still that are part of this whole issue. Obviously, the long-term discussion around the causeway, what are we going to do as sea levels rise about a foot, as talked about in that plan. I think septic vulnerability assessments are set up now. We're moving forward to work on that assessment, as we talked about earlier, and that we really need to figure out how we're going to handle that in terms of all the different properties on the island. I think a couple of things really need to happen in terms of we were so disappointed to lose all those palm trees. A lot of the people, as I went around and talked about this campaign, were very sad to lose those palm trees, and they soaked up a lot of water. So I think while the bigger picture is being handled in terms of handling the environment, I think neighborhood flooding continues to be an issue. You go over to Tabby every time. We had that a couple days ago, and people can't get out of their houses. They're very upset. There have to be some great programs put in place and to handle that.
Thank you.
I would agree with most of what Ann had to say. And also, relationships are what's going to be important in this. We have to have our federal relationships and our state relationships. And that's what I am, a team player with people. I've always gotten along well with whatever the representative is, whoever the governor is, whoever the U.S. Senator is, and also U.S. representatives. We have to have those people helping us solve our problems. We cannot solve the causeway problem as a city of Folly Beach. That is just not possible. That has to be done with either some federal money or a lot of state money. And we have to have those good relationships. If you go to the city council meetings, a lot of times you'll hear them talk about the highway department. And it's not really in a great way they're talking about them. They're talking about them very derogatory. And if those people hear what's getting back to them, we have to have the relationships with all these outside agencies to help us move forward, because we depend on them very much to help us do what has to be done here.
Another plan. Okay, so this is the Folly 2050 Planning for Water. This is a document that's, I can't say enough about it, and it was Dr. Elko's Coastal Firm, Sea Grant Consortium, and the College of Charleston. And this is a blueprint now and in the future of what the issues are that we will be looking at. And if we could execute this, it will answer most of our issues. I will tell you, though, this weekend when the calls were coming in, and particularly it was Tabby, and, well, actually it was like Wednesday through the weekend, and I really learned a lot about how things work and how they don't work. You make the calls. You try to figure out, is it a county road? Whose road is it? So on and so forth. It's a SCDOT. And that was where the leverage was, because when you have roads on Folly that are owned by others, I agree, you need relationships. You also need to know who to call. And I want to do a shout out to Spencer Wetmore. She was the one that was able to have some leverage and really access the powers that be to help in that situation. It wasn't that Folly didn't have pumps going on and they weren't aware of it. We needed more because it was a situation that we couldn't handle ourselves. So I agree, it's relationships. And by the way, yesterday I met with the South Carolina DOT in Columbia to follow up, and they reinforced the fact that they are here for us.
Yeah, we got a very vivid reminder this past week that water is going to be the #1 issue that we have going forward. The Folly 2050 plan is an incredible document that outlines the issues we have and gives paths forwards on each one. We need to raise the causeway. It's going to start flooding by once a month by 2050. We've got septic tanks that are going to start failing because of groundwater and stormwater. The city's already been proactive with that. I've worked with them. We're developed a grant proposal to map all the septic tanks on the island so that we can identify the ones that are at risk and help homeowners mitigate before they become a bit bigger issue. We need to look at more scientific and tech-based approaches, mapping the flooding areas on the island. You mentioned Tabby. There's others all over the island that need to be addressed. We need to prioritize and figure out proactive approaches, because water If we can't get to the island, all these other issues that we're talking about go away. We have to be able to be resilient, prepared, and proactive.
I told you earlier, resiliency was going to come back. It's going to be one of our biggest issues moving forward. I've put that in a lot of pieces that I've written and bio stuff, that it's going to be something we have to face. We have great plans that we've started, but I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you guys. What we went through last weekend, we won't fix that. That was an 8.5-foot king tide with a storm surge. Then we're a barrier island. You know, we were created to save Charleston. You know, we have to understand that to a degree. We've got a lot of programs going. We've got, you know, as far as the regular drainage goes, we've got those projects going. You see them working now. Half the east side's taken up with construction equipment for Center Street, for the east side, for the redundant water line in the name of trying to do that. We've started dune infiltration projects, which is kind of another leading, you know, we're an area leader in that one, trying to run from areas where we can't get the water overflow out to the marshes and then the river, run it through the dunes and let it filter out, you know, through that. Since it's just drainage water, there's no, you know, there's no gray water with it. We have to do all those things together, but we also have to work together. You know, the city has programs for rain gardens for homeowners and different projects that homeowners can do to make their property more resilient. You know, it's going to take all of us working together. We'll keep doing the big ones. We hope y'all can do the small ones, and we'll all just hope that we can get through, you know, something like last weekend.
All right, candidates, thank you so much for your responses. And now we ask one more thing of you, and that is your closing statements. You have 60 seconds. We will proceed in reverse order from our opening statements. We begin with Ms. Houghton.
Okay, let's see, closing statement. Well, I think I'll close by saying that I am committed to be of support and assistance to Folly Beach. Whatever you call me, whatever the title is, whatever the case may be. I've been fortunate to build a skill set, and I can transfer it, and I have transferred it to serve Folly Beach. And why would I do that when some of us could maybe choose other things? It truly is, and it's not hokey, completely the love of Folly. And that is what's so amazing when I look all the way back to the room and this place is packed. Last week it's packed. The engagement, the civic engagement, the community service that we have. And the fact is that motivates me to continue to participate in that. Last but not least, I truly do this to make my mother proud. I really do. She passed when I was 12. She basically gave me a few lessons. Please and thank you, Catherine. It takes all kinds of people to make the world go round. And you're the frosting on the cake. So your job is to tell everyone else they're the frosting on the cake. I don't know how you can follow that, Elton. I just don't know.
First of all, thank you all for coming tonight. What we all have up here in common is that we all love Folly Beach. The difference is I'm not putting my head in the sand and acting as though everything is all right. Your property rights have been taken away, and I want to listen to that and fix that problem. The cap needs to be addressed. Many of you were fed empty promises and now realize that. I'm not interested in closing the doors on short-term rentals. I also can promise you this, my administration will be proactive in enforcing the quality of life ordinances. That is most important. The East Arctic Safety Plan, I have a better plan, and it will not cost $9 million. I'm the only one that has addressed the Folly Beach Parks and Recreation Department that needs to be addressed. I'm a team player. I will bring the island back together. I'll always have an open door policy, and it will be transparent. Let's make Folly Paradise together.
At the end of the day, what do you need from your mayor? It's a leader who will listen, problem solve, and then take action for results. You can be confident I can deliver this for you. The city has plans for sea level rise, infrastructure, and safety action. Taking more programs over the finish line is where I'm going to focus. Communications, hearing more often about what the city will do, won't do, and when is key. I'm excited about building more community activities together and a 10-year vision to have us stand out. As you vote, think seriously about who offers the bundle of skills and experience to start moving Folly forward faster and stronger. I offer this, along with my love for Folly and the backbone to stand up for us every single day. And I'm the one you can trust to do the right thing even when no one is looking. To take Folly forward with fresh energy and real results, I humbly ask for your vote for mayor.
I'll say that one. I want to start off by thanking everybody for coming. Thank the League of Women Voters Civic Club for putting us on, Tides for hosting, Ms. Murray for moderating, and you for showing up. You know, it takes you have to take an interest in these kind of things, or else we don't know what to do. So it's great to see all of you here. The one thing I will say is that you've heard a lot from me tonight about the things we've done to strengthen your community, make your lives better over the last 14 years. I do believe in that. I think we've done a good job, and the thing that convinced me or confirms that with me is you've heard everybody else up here say that we've done a great job for the last 14 years at some point on things that we're doing, and the city's in a good spot. I've been involved in that for 14 years. I've enjoyed every bit of serving you as council member for 14 years and helping move us responsibly, and I'd appreciate 4 more with your support for mayor. Thank you.
The next mayor is going to set the agenda, and in doing so, set the path that Folly takes for the next 4 years and beyond. Folly Beach needs steady, unbiased leadership. Leadership that listens, collaborates, finds solutions, and always puts community first. Leadership that recognizes 3 simple principles: balance, where residents, businesses, and visitors can all thrive together; sustainability, we need to address the infrastructure challenges that keep our island safe for us and our next generation; and community, protecting the cap, keeping Folly a place where you still know your neighbors. I've spent years finding practical solutions, and I know the value of collaboration, communication, civility, and respect. These are the traits that I'll bring to the mayor's office. Let's keep Folly moving forward with balance, sustainability, and community at the center of every decision. I would love to earn your vote, and I would be very honored to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are your candidates for mayor of Folly Beach. A round of applause for them, please. Candidates, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and ideas and promises to the people of Folly Beach, and we appreciate you being so respectful of this process. It's been an honor to serve as a moderator. Audience, thank you again for your time and attention, and thank you for those of you who had to stand at the back of the room the entire time. We certainly appreciate it. We encourage you to respond to the issues and study them very carefully to learn more about the positions of each candidate. Remember, voting is November 4th. Use the League of Women Voters Vote 411 to check the status of your voter registration and also to learn about the candidate's position. Also, a quick note, don't forget that early voting is Monday, October 20th through Friday, October 31st. Again, thank you to the Tides Hotel for allowing us to share this space. Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters and Folly Beach Civic Council.
I'm going to butt in here and I want everybody to thank Carolyn Murray for taking her time and bringing us her expertise. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.